Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to discuss Star Wars, or specifically, is there too much Star Wars?
Yes.
Too much too soon, and has that hurt the franchise?
I think there's lots of things at play that hurt the franchise.
There are lots of things that have hurt Star Wars. So Geeky brought this article to my attention today. This is from Luke Hutchinson at Screen Rant. Now, this is kind of interesting because we're starting to see, and this kind of happened with Doctor Who this week too, we're starting to see these pop culture websites that have historically sort of defended The Last Jedi, defended Doctor Who, sort of turning on them a little bit.
Yes and no. They do, but they're like, could it be maybe? You know, I don't know. Were they?
Could it be possibly maybe?
The Screen Rant usually defended? I don't know.
It depends on who's writing the article. Now I was
like most sites.
Yeah, I was looking at Hutchinson's articles, and he seems like he's a little more balanced, I think. It doesn't seem like he's got much of a political agenda. It's just an observation that Disney rushed out the sequel trilogy too fast. Well, hell yeah, they did. They rushed it out before they even had an outline for the entire trilogy, and it has suffered horribly for it. And apparently, Rian Johnson was writing The Last Jedi before they were even done filming Force Awakens.
Yeah, and that makes sense, actually.
So that makes a lot of sense. There were some missed memos.
Yeah, so go ahead and look at the article and we'll see what's going on.
Okay, so there were 3 years between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, obviously, and were Star Wars being made for the first time today, then the sequel likely would have been released as soon as possible. Yeah, they weren't sure if it was going to be a hit, so it sort of took a while. So they were 3 years apart.
Yeah, they used to be 3 years apart all the time.
Right, and he did that with the prequels too. He did it with Phantom Menace, yada yada. It didn't guarantee quality, but what it did grant was time. It was time for the filmmakers to adjust and react. Time for the fans to cool off, pause, and then get all excited again. Disney changed that.
They want to get their money's worth, but I think the reason they did 3 years apart originally was because of the time, and then he just kept it that way because that's what people were used to.
Yeah.
I don't think it was any grand, scheme for people to cool down or anything else. I think it's just, that's how it always was, so it's not broke.
Yeah, and the special effects back then, I think, took longer, too. A lot of, especially the original trilogy, they had to, invent technology, and there was a lot of, now it's just everything is computers, for the most part, and they have it down, but back then they were actually kind of making it up as they go.
Yeah.
And I think that it took more time.
But Disney, yeah, of course. I mean, they have their theme park opening, and they want, they want their money's worth. Can't say I blame them, but we paid a lot of money for this, damn it. We got to get a lot of money back. So
yeah, now this I disagree with. Star Wars was going nowhere fast when Disney stepped in to purchase Lucasfilm back in 2012. They paid a whopping $4 billion for the company, which looks like a bargain now. Yeah, I think George actually got ripped off. I think he got ripped off. So they immediately set about ensuring they would quickly recoup their Star Wars investment, and I think they did pretty much just on The Force Awakens and the theme parks, and between first two movies, I think they recouped it. So the release of The Force Awakens in 2015 was a revival of the Star Wars franchise on the big screen for Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and everyone else. That was just the beginning.
Oh boy.
God, we had no idea. Actually, some people speculated this is how things would go, but we didn't want to listen. This was a brand new era, one which would see a new Star Wars film released every year forever.
Yeah.
Disney had a shiny new toy and wanted to play with it constantly. Sounds kind of dirty. It's just so happened that the toy was one of the biggest movie franchises ever created.
Yeah, now if it was such a joke and it was so terrible and every 3 years is a bad thing and all that, why would it have been one of the biggest movie franchises and multimedia brands ever created?
Yeah, it wasn't really a joke. I mean, I think it was. I mean, that was George's decision.
No. I'm just saying, not that. I'm saying the whole idea about 3 years in between that. The Disney thinks you don't need to do that now. It's like, well, we don't need to do that. We're Disney. There was a reason. I'm just saying you don't get to be that without knowing something about a little bit about how it works with the fandom.
Yeah, and the thing with Star Wars is, they were always special. It was always an event. Even the prequels. It was an event when a new Star Wars movie came out. And then it would go in hibernation for years and come back. People speculate about when the next trilogy was going to come out, and in this case, it's just like, wow, you're gonna get Star Wars forever. It's
Yeah.
like it's not special anymore.
That's
it's
yeah.
not
I think,
special
and then
anymore.
it's going up against Marvel and some of their other big movie brands, and you can't. You're just like competing against yourself.
They are.
Constantly.
They're competing against themselves. And the thing is that I think it might have actually gone over better had the MCU not come along and showed people that science fiction could be done better.
Right. And they do it frequently too, but
yeah, but it's like the comics where you've got all these characters and all these story arcs, and Star Wars never was that. I mean, there would be occasional spin-off stories, but for the most part, it focused on the core characters. And then, they're trying to turn, or they tried, I think past tense, I think they're pulling back now, but they wanted to turn Star Wars into another MCU with like 2 or 3 movies a year, billion-dollar movies every year.
They just
and
want to
that's
turn it
not,
into the green milk creature so they can keep
just
milking
want
it.
to keep milking
But
it.
it's just, I mean, families don't have unlimited money, contrary to what Disney seems to think lately, especially when they keep raising ticket prices. Families don't have unlimited money, and if you have all these big movies coming out, they're going to pick which one they want to go to the most, because, like, say a family of 5, and tickets are like, what, $10 a piece now, if you're lucky, a lot of places?
10 to 15. Usually,
Right,
yeah.
so that's easily $50, and then, popcorn and drinks and all that.
$25 for popcorn.
You're talking like $75, $100 for your family to go to one movie, and they're like, hey, we got another one coming in 2 weeks,
Yeah, and a Marvel. Yeah, and Disney's like, there's a movie like every week.
And kids seem to be more into the Marvel movies than they are in the Star Wars ones. I'm sorry, but that just seems to be the case.
I think Marvel is to this generation what Star Wars was to our generation.
I agree.
And I think Disney kind of like hurt itself a little bit because they made vastly superior movies, and they and then when they brought Star Wars back, it just wasn't what it was.
Well, if they had kept the bigger, longer in between. I mean, they did that between Force Awakens and Last Jedi. It didn't save Last Jedi. But if they had done that,
it was only 2 years,
right?
Yeah.
But they had other movies shoved
Rogue
in.
One shoved in.
So I'm like, if they had done that, where they waited 2 years even and not had anything else, maybe even I think that people might have been okay with it because there are all these Marvel. Oh, let's take a break from Marvel and go do Star Wars. I think Star Wars still would have made its money back. With the parks and everything, I think it still would have worked. But go ahead.
So I have to wonder, and we'll continue the article here, but they put ruined in quotes here. Is this part of, because we talked about before, kind of this preemptive with it being 2019, is this already kind of part of the, is the guy actually playing devil's advocate, or is this part of the preemptive kind of like, well, the reason the other, yeah, I'm on your side, but the reason that the other movies didn't do so well was because there were just too much of them.
And, well, I don't think that's the only reason.
No, I think there was. Well, yeah, they talk more about this. Yeah, we'll go here.
Yeah, this is. I think it's more than just this. This didn't help, but I think it's more than just this. Okay.
Yeah, when The Force Awakens was released in 2015, it was a huge statement that Star Wars was back. What's more, it was backed up by taking in over $2 billion at the box office, breaking records in the process. At that point, Star Wars: The Last Jedi was already in development with a release date of May 26, 2017. Yeah, it actually was supposed to come out sooner. Star Wars: The Last Jedi was then pushed back to December, but that made just a 2-year window rather than 18 months. It's still too short for a Star Wars movie. Even with the release change, it meant Rian Johnson was writing the script for Episode 8 long before The Force Awakens had been released.
Okay.
That's a huge problem.
Well, here's my thing, though.
That's a huge problem.
It's impossible to say what, if anything, Johnson might have done differently had he not started until after The Force Awakens release. What is clear, though, is that he would have at least had some time to be reactive to it. Instead, while knowing the points the film would hit, he went off and did his own thing, and the result was the most divisive Star Wars movie to date. Johnson himself has admitted it was challenging to write The Last Jedi while The Force Awakens was still being finished. Well, there's something called due diligence.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm sorry, you can't give Rian Johnson a pass or Kathleen Kennedy a pass because they're supposed to know what the hell is going on.
Because if you're going to write a sequel to something, it makes sense. If you go find out what the hell happened in the first one, how hard was it to get a script? How hard was it to get a script from the first one and sit down and say, okay, JJ, let's look at what we can do and how we can take my ideas and how we can mix them with your ideas. Maybe we can get something that's cohesive here. And then on top of it, Kathleen Kennedy ultimately would have been in charge of making sure it was cohesive. So, bullshit.
Yeah, well, it's the same with, you look at the original trilogy and there were different directors on each episode of the original trilogy, but at the end of it, George Lucas and Gary Kurtz kind of had the reins of the whole thing. They knew what was going on. They knew basically what the story was, and they didn't feel it felt cohesive. It felt like it was all one story. And Last Jedi does not feel like it's a continuation of The Force Awakens.
No, and like I said, that's a problem that could have easily been fixed with getting a copy of the script, having a day after while you're still working on it, a day after they were done filming, get together, or when they were mostly done filming, so they kind of knew where it was going. And it's like, what can I do here? What was, tell me where you're going with this so I can make sure I match up somewhat. This I never heard this one before either. Have you? That it was, it only sucked because he didn't know what Abrams was doing. Have you heard this one before?
The dog ate his homework.
Have you heard this one before?
No, I mean, I knew that he had some requests. I do remember reading that he had requests, like he wanted to make sure that originally BB-8 was supposed to go with Rey to go see Luke, and he switched it out for R2 so he could have the Leia scene. And he wanted to make sure that he's like, well, we don't show, because originally I guess Luke was supposed to be using the Force at the end of the movie, and it was going to show him like levitating a bunch of rocks or something like that. And he's like, well, don't do that. Never. I don't know if he ever explained why. Like, don't do that because I'm going to ruin Luke. I still want. I mean, obviously, they had a difference of opinion when it came to Luke because Luke is in these like sterling white Jedi robes at the end of The Force Awakens, and then he looks like a freaking bum. In
right.
The Last Jedi, he goes and he changes out of his, like, was that his Sunday best or something? And then he goes and he puts on a bunch of rags.
Well, you don't want to look at your good clothes when you're going to go squeeze green milk out of something for no reason.
Yeah, you might get green stain.
I was just like, ew. But I'm just like, okay, but I haven't heard this one before. It sounds to me like, okay, guys, well, you're getting all mad, but honestly, it wasn't his fault because he just didn't have all the information. So calm down before the next movie comes out. It was probably one of the biggest problems of why the fans are fighting each other, but it was an honest mistake. Honest mistake? Get the flipping script. How hard is it?
When you're dealing, this is what blows my mind about the whole situation with Star Wars and the sequel trilogy. When you are dealing with a multi-billion-dollar franchise, one of the biggest franchises in the history of cinema, the fact that these guys couldn't sit down in a room together with a pack of freaking Post-it notes and plot out the entire general story arc of the sequel trilogy. This is what we're doing in
the first movie. This is what we're doing in the second movie. This is what we're doing in the third movie.
Right, basically.
We do that.
Right.
We flipping do that. I mean,
most
we don't
people
get paid
do
like
that. That is
writing 101.
The most inexcusable, grossly incompetent things I think ever to happen to a major franchise, that they couldn't even sit down and coordinate what the hell was going on in these movies. They did not have to have the details fleshed out, but they should have at least had a rough outline.
Yeah, we know it's going this way. Work with that.
This is basically what's going to happen.
You can't ruin Luke. You can't do this. You can't do that. Those are. I understand your ideas, but we don't want those. We'll take these ideas. Go work with that. That would make sense. I mean, and ultimately, Kathleen Kennedy should have been. They didn't match up. Well, that was her job to be like, whoa. I'm seeing this new script. This does not go with the other script. We got to make it cohesive. This is bullcrap. This is excuses. Lame.
That's what blows my mind too. Like, Rian Johnson was not a proven director, and she basically just handed the keys to the Falcon over to this guy, and he did whatever the hell he felt like doing.
But she knew what happened in the first movie. So the idea is, he didn't really know what was all going on, and he couldn't really talk to Abrams because he was busy. Well, why didn't he go to Kathleen Kennedy then? Because Kathleen Kennedy, it was her job to oversee it. If you have a job, right, and you're supposed to take over a project from somebody else, and you don't go and talk to the person and find out what's going on with the project, and just go with it your own way and make all kinds of changes that don't even make sense to the project, and the client's like, what the hell? Would you get you fired?
It used to, but...
Well, I mean, in most jobs, in the real world.
Used to?
In the real world.
Yeah.
You're expected to do your due diligence.
I think she was too busy firing the Lego movie guys off of Solo or something.
That gets brought up.
Yeah, they spread themselves too thin. They absolutely spread themselves too thin. After Last Jedi and Solo, Lucasfilm is looking to course correct. Okay, here we go. Lucasfilm is looking to course correct with Star Wars Episode 9. You can't do it. You've already freaking killed everybody off. You've painted yourself into a corner. You cannot make Episode 9 good. You
can't unscrew it. I'm gonna say the pooch, but okay.
You can't unscrew this pooch. This giant pooch. Had they slowed things down in the first place, that wouldn't be necessary. Johnson's film would have still been his, no doubt, but there would have at least been some time to adapt after seeing what did or didn't work in The Force Awakens.
Basically meaning that he would have still had time to change it in his script and make it a little more cohesive, I think is what he's saying. But still, that's not an excuse, because there are people that were there for the whole thing and should have caught that.
This is it's grossly incompetent what happened. I mean, when you're dealing with a franchise of this size, of this importance, and like so much is riding, not just the movies, but the merchandise and the theme parks, all this is riding on it. What the hell are you doing?
I think they just thought, because they have the Star Wars name, they could do whatever the hell they want. Everybody was just going to tell them that it was great and eat it up. I honestly think that's what they thought. Toy sales, they're always going to stay high because of the old fans. Movie sales, people are going to go see it, whether they like it or not. They'll still go pay to see it. They will.
Yeah.
I think it was we'll rest on our laurels because we don't have to work, because it's already a big built-in blockbuster no matter what we do. I think that's what they were thinking.
Yeah, and we've seen how that works. So not only did The Last Jedi kill off toy sales, which I never thought would happen. I mean, Star Wars toys sold when there were no Star Wars movies.
Right, that's what I was saying. When they said it was like worthless in 2012, I'm like, no, it was still selling toys, but go ahead.
They were still selling. I mean, there were tons of they had like a Star Wars aisle at most toy stores.
Yep.
Those toys still sold, even though they were classic characters or they were Clone Wars or whatever. The toys sold. They always sold. They've been selling consistently since they brought them back in the 90s. The Last Jedi killed off Star Wars toy sales. Completely unheard of. And that was a big part of why they bought the franchise. And then Solo bombed. Can you imagine a Star Wars movie, even the worst of the prequels? I'm going to say the worst, is, in my opinion, is Attack of the Clones. Okay, it did the worst at the box office of the three prequel movies. I think it was actually the worst of the three movies. But even that did not have the damage done to the franchise, did not create the damage to the franchise that The Last Jedi did, creating a bomb. It made Solo a bomb.
Well, basically their excuse is, those movies weren't great either, the prequels, but people had time to get over it, which is kind of true. People did mostly get over it before they went to the next one, and they didn't give them time to get over it. But this one just went way so far out. I mean, even if you'd gotten 3 years, I don't know if people would get over it the whole way.
I don't think they would. And it's not just the movie. They keep ignoring a big component of this. It's not just the movie. It's the attitude of the studio. It's the attitude of the people at Lucasfilm constantly attacking the fans and blaming their failures on the fandom, the loyal fandom, the fandom that still came back after the prequels, that bought toys when there were no movies.
The little fans who read the books and wrote to the authors because they loved them so much. When there was nothing, no movies, nothing. They didn't even know they were going to do prequels. Still loved it. Those people. They took those people off. Anyway, go ahead.
But no, I'm just saying, like, those people, they were hard to shake. And, Lucasfilm, Disney, they did it. Somehow they did it. They completely pissed off Star Wars fans.
That's what I'm saying. They thought they could just do whatever,
right,
and people weren't going to
care. To the point where they don't even want to go see the movies now. I mean, I never thought that would happen. I never thought things would get so bad that people would just be like, oh, Star Wars movie, I don't give a shit. Fuck it. I'm not going to go see it.
Yeah.
I've never thought things would get that bad.
A lot of people are just apathetic. They just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a sense that people have grown a little tired of Star Wars.
A little tired of Star Wars.
Which is understandable. Even beyond the divisions, after 6 movies released in 28 years and then nothing for a decade, there have been 4 more movies since 2015 and a 5th one on the way. Not even the Millennium Falcon moves that fast. To put this into perspective, the entire Star Wars sequel trilogy, including 2 spin-off movies, will have released in the same span of time between Spectre and Bond 25. I don't really care, but okay.
Yeah, but it is quick. I mean, we're talking, between 2015 and 2019. Normally we'd only have 2 movies and another one on the way, and now we've had 4 movies and a 5th one on the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ideal. This is the year that Episode 9 releases and the Skywalker saga ends. I highly doubt that. I think they will try to end the Skywalker saga, and I think they will, to save the Star Wars brand at some point in the future, and it may be 10 or 20 years from now, they're going to have to revisit it, because that's what people want. That's what they want.
But The Last Jedi, or rather the response to it, take a lot of the blame, or the response to it, people's response to it. Johnson's bold movie divided fans with a debate that still hasn't gone away since its release.
Bold movie, that's
putting it nicely.
That's putting it much too politely.
Solo poured fuel on the flames. It tanked at the box office. It was seen by critics as unnecessary, and just another example how Disney was ruining Star Wars.
Yeah. If anything has ruined Star Wars, it's Disney's major push to release a new film every year and a saga installment every 2 years. If the movies are good, look, Marvel can do it. Marvel But they have a game plan. They've got Kevin Feige. He's got a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And
he oversees all. It's all connected, which is what they should have done.
Right. Kathleen Kennedy is not Kevin Feige.
No, but isn't she supposed to be doing the same thing he is?
She's supposed
to be.
It's
her job
right.
to make them cohesive.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
She's dealing with way fewer movies than he has to deal with. He's doing like 2 or 3 a year.
I know.
And he's got all kinds of different directors, all kinds of different characters. He's got all kinds of crazy storylines that all have to connect into the big payoff with the Infinity War movies, and he can manage it. Why can't Kathleen Kennedy manage it?
It's the same rush that led to such a truncated marketing campaign for Solo. Yeah, I thought the marketing campaign was short. We talked about that before and how it was really
There was
odd.
no trailer before The Last
what?
Jedi. That was weird.
We have Bam 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 Marvel movies, and you're already seeing trailers for them.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's another. That was their choice. They decided that they were the ones who truncated it for whatever reason. They have this problem doing it right for the Marvel films. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it's just, again, this comes down to management. Like, they needed to sit down at the very beginning and go, look, we're going to make 3 more movies. What is this trilogy about?
Yeah, what is the theme of our trilogy?
I still can't tell you what the sequel trilogy is about. The prequel trilogy, despite its flaws, you know what it's about. It's about the beginning of the Empire, the fall of the Jedi, and the rise of Darth Vader.
Right.
It's that very cut and dry. That the original trilogy is about them, fighting back against the Empire and Vader becoming, being redeemed. The sequel trilogy is,
I don't know. It's A New Hope, and then it's A New Hope and they kill Han, and then it's whatever the heck The Last Jedi was. I still don't even know what the heck. They basically didn't accomplish anything.
Nothing happened in The Last Jedi.
We got a holdover maneuver, and that's about it.
And some foxes and some rocks and no.
Oh, and they found a way to ruin Luke.
And they ruined Luke.
I don't see what the point of it was.
There was no
because they never moved
progression.
forward.
There's no moving forward.
No. It's just they went to a place and then they got in a battle with the the First Order. I can't even talk today.
Yeah, where did they come from? Why do we still have stormtroopers? Why do we still have a rebellion? There's no explanation. That's the biggest again, there's no progression. The prequels, you see the Empire being formed. It continues in the original trilogy, but then they destroy the Empire. But then somehow between 6 and 7, the Empire is back and they're building more Death Stars. What the fuck is going on?
Did they learn from the Death Stars? I'm sorry. No, it's bigger.
It's a bigger Death Star.
It's Star Killer. It's a Star Killer. Did they learn nothing? Did you learn nothing?
I don't know. So we'll see if Lucasfilm learns.
But the garbage man knew how to get in there and take it down.
God, I have no idea. Yeah, I can't even tell you what the sequel trilogy is about at all. I have no idea.
So, it might have just been one movie instead of 2 or 3, but they almost tried to treat it the same way as MCU, yeah.
Yeah, we've been
For Star Wars, it just doesn't work. Instead of one of the biggest and greatest franchises thriving, the best thing that can happen now is that after Episode 9, the Star Wars franchise goes away for a bit. Which they're not going to, because they're going to do like shows and stuff for the Plus, because they have to keep it up so they can promote the theme parks.
Yeah.
It needs time to rest, regroup, and plot a new path forward. And that goes for both the fandom and the movies themselves.
But they're not going to let it.
They let it breathe. They're not going to, because they're already talking plans on this hotel down in Orlando. There's going to be this very like LARPing plus hotel. And it's going to be connected to Galaxy's Edge. I mean, if they would go back to the classics, what people love, and just stick with that, you could probably make it still go, but they're not.
I think this is where, it comes down to, Lucas made movies he loved and the money kind of followed. And in this case, Disney's just looking at it as a cash cow.
Which I was going to mention something about that real quick. There was some stuff, you might have seen tweets on Twitter and be like, what the hell's going on? Well, so there was an interview with Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, and he was talking about different things in it. But among the things, I guess he made some comment about the IP rights, because it's a running joke with everybody that he's basically going into the theme parks and taking everything and turning it into some kind of IP cash cow. And he made a comment about Expedition Everest, which was like a beloved ride by a lot of people. And a lot of people got really offended, including the one Imagineer that I guess designed it wasn't too happy either. And so it was a big thing. So then, like today, I think it was, as a joke, he's like, oh, Captain Marvel, because they have the new trailer out. Captain Marvel, we're going to have to go make theme parks and rides. Ha ha. Aren't I funny? Because the fandom was kind of, were ticked.
Yeah, they were.
And I'm like, dude, basically you're just like, let them eat cake and like, you know, like
yeah, it was a jab because people were like, you know, and I think Disney knows they kind of have their finger on the pulse of that, at least, that a lot of the fans aren't real excited about Captain Marvel, and he's kind of
well, it wasn't about that. No, that wasn't his point. His
that wasn't his point.
Was
theme park,
you know, because but the new IP.
Yeah.
The thing is that's a tongue-in-cheek joke because the truth of the matter is that's all Disney looks at this for. That's all Disney's looking to Star Wars for is theme park, money.
Well, the thing is, they could let Star Wars rest for 10 years because they would have the money coming in from the theme parks. People are going to go to the theme parks, you know, regardless of whether or not they have new movies out. I mean, they rode Star Tours for how many years without movies? Star Tours came out in like, what, 89 or 90?
Harry Potter theme park at Universal was huge without the Fantastic Beasts films for years. I mean, but I'm just saying, I think that at the end of the day, the only reason I mention it is because it just goes to show you, you know,
that's the mindset.
You know, IP. How can we leverage the IP? And
right.
That it's not about doing it because you love it. It's about leveraging the IP.
Well,
that was my point.
Even you know, previous video I did on Star Wars, I talked about how they've got these Flight of the Falcon books out, and they're talking about how it's the Falcon's journey is gonna end
saw that, yeah.
at Batu, which ties directly into the theme park. So they're the long game on, and I think Episode 9. I'll tell you the truth. I think Episode 9 is going to be a giant commercial for the theme park.
Oh, I'm no doubt.
I think it's going to take place mostly on Batu.
The books are.
Yeah. It's going to be a giant commercial for the theme park.
Well, they already doing this now with the Star Tours ride. At the end of the ride now, like they have different sections, they do different things, but now they all land in Batu. At the end, coming soon, you know, kind of thing. Of course they're going to.
Yeah, and that's kind of worrisome because not only are they painted into a corner with what they can do now since they've killed everybody off and they tied up so many storylines, but they're also limited to what they can do that ties into the theme park. And that's kind of like, it's almost like the theme park is going to dictate the story.
Yeah, I think so.
Of Episode 9,
that's what the cash is going to be.
Yeah, and that's still going to make it a garbage movie because they're not writing the story or telling a story that needs to be told, because the story does not need to be told, but then now it's just a commercial for a theme park attraction. So
yeah.
Anyway, Episode 9's coming, whether or not you want it. And then after that, I don't know what happens. They're talking Game of Thrones guys are going to do a trilogy. I don't know if I care, really. I don't care. I really don't. I'm more interested in watching how the media deals with it, because I really do think that the fans are going to get attacked harder this year than they've ever been attacked, because they're going to make sure this movie succeeds. We're trying to win you to our side here. You know, like with this article, it was an accident. He really messed up. He probably should have rethought what he was doing a little bit, but it's not really his fault, because he didn't really know what they were doing with The Last Jedi. And it's like, but it was his job to find out. I mean, sorry, with The Force Awakens, but it was his job to find out before he did The Last Jedi. And Kathleen Kennedy should have been like they are with Marvel, where they had it over. Okay, we were doing these 3 things. You do this, you do this, you do this. Here's what we're covering in each one. Go. You know, they do it all the time with anthologies. They do it all the time with other things where people just work together with a common theme and they still get it done, and it's relatively, you know, flows. So this is just it's just incompetence. It's just incompetence. No, because you got to use this to smooth it over to try to make your fans happy before the new movie. This year is going to be really interesting, though. I think you're going to see all kinds of really wacky articles trying to either discredit the fans or trying to win them back with bullshit. And because we'll be there to cover it. We'll be there to cover it. So that's the most interesting. To me, that is the most interesting thing about Star Wars now, is to watch how they're going to spin this to try to win people back. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see. So, are we done? Yeah. We are done. So, we're going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe to CLOWNFISH TV for more pop culture news, views, rants, art, videos, gaming videos, and more. This has been Geeky and Neon. Bye. Goodbye.